This program will feature Norfolk Southern action at various locations throughout Ohio. We'll start with the NS Dayton District. Our first run-by will be NS symbol 63T at milepost 193 near Eaton, Ohio. This train brings empty steel coil cars from Wayne, Michigan to Middletown, Ohio. NS Train 180 at milepost 197 in Fairborn, Ohio. Train 180 runs between Cincinnati and Columbus, Ohio. Returning to milepost 193, train 116 heads east. 116 runs between Chattanooga, Tennessee and Bellevue, Ohio. The abandoned right-of-way of the Erie-Lackawanna's Dayton branch from Marion, Ohio can be seen on the other side of the tracks. The Erie-Lackawanna ran right beside this former New York Central line for about 18 miles, between Cold Springs Tower at milepost 188 and Dayton milepost 206. NS Train 376 approaches milepost 193 from the west. 376 is a Louisville, Kentucky to Columbus train. NS Train 116 at milepost 193 with a former Conrail engine on the point. This structure is the former Southwest Portland Cement Plant in Fairborn. Train 117 heads west. 117 runs from Bellevue to Chattanooga. This concrete structure is now used for fire and rescue training. NS Train 169 heads west. 169 originates in Pittsburgh and will take its train to Cincinnati, Ohio. NS Grain Train 44A approaches milepost 198 from the east. At milepost 186, NS Train 180 runs through a cut behind the Masonic home in Springfield, Ohio. It's springtime in Ohio, and the redbud trees show their color. Train 117 enters the cut from the east. The city of Springfield passed an ordinance that prohibits train horns at railroad crossings within city limits. Klaxon horns now blow in advance of a train's approaching. It is our opinion that the Klaxon horns are more of a nuisance than the train horns. Train 116 approaches the East Main Street crossing at milepost 185. NS Train 200 approaches from the South Charleston Pike Crossing at milepost 178 on the east side of Springfield. Train 200 and its counterpart symbol 229 were added to the Dayton District in 2012. 3 bridges on this line had to be raised to permit clearance of the double-stack containers these 2 intermodal trains haul. 200 originates in Danville, Kentucky and runs to Columbus, Ohio on the Dayton District, and usually runs in the mid-morning hours, while 229 runs from Columbus to Danville in the middle of the night. NS Train 180 at milepost 198 in Fairborn. NS Grain Train 42A at milepost 193 is being led by 3 brand new ST70 ACE locomotives. NS63T at milepost 193. Train 169 at milepost 193. Train 116 at milepost 196. and Train 200 at milepost 177 east of Springfield. We're looking at the west end of Brooks Siding. Train 180 approaches milepost 182 in downtown Springfield. .60R pulls into view near where Cold Spring Tower once stood at milepost 188. This is where the Erie Dayton branch and the Peoria and Eastern once converged near the former Big Four Cleveland, Columbus, and Cincinnati main line. The track to your left is the passing siding. The passing siding is located on the former Erie right-of-way. We were able to catch up with 60R and view it running under the Maple Avenue overpass in Fairborn. Train 200 is at milepost 198. Since 200 has a reduced speed restriction through Springfield, we're able to catch up with it again 26 miles later at milepost 172 in Plattsburgh, Ohio. Train 180 approaches milepost 183 in Springfield. Train 116 at milepost 193. Moving on to the NS Sandusky District near Attica Junction, Ohio, we catch a meet between eastbound NS Train 234 and westbound NS Train 836 at milepost 82. Train 234 is a hot intermodal train that runs between Chicago and Norfolk, Virginia, and 836 is a coal train that runs from Williamson, West Virginia to Bellevue, Ohio. On the point of 836, we're lucky to catch NS Heritage Unit 8100 in the nickel plate paint scheme. Coal sand marks the location of the former Pennsy Crest Line to Chicago Main Line and the former Norfolk and Western Columbus to Sandusky Main Line. This diamond is located in Bucyrus, Ohio, but the junction is called Coal Sand. NS Train 316 is the first train we'll capture at this location. The milepost on the Sandusky District is 62.9. .379 is a Bellevue to Cincinnati train. The former Union Pacific ST-60 on the point of this train is leased to NS by Helm Leasing. .18M is at milepost 63. This train runs from Elkhart, Indiana to Linwood, North Carolina. An unidentified NS northbound takes the southeast quadrant connector at Colsan and heads east on the former Pennsy. NS 57K brings a grain train toward Bellevue. looking south and then north from our aerial perch at Coal Sand. Jumping north to Oak Harbor, Ohio on the former Conrail Chicago line, we see NS Train 16N heading east. 16N runs from Elkhart, Indiana to Allentown, Pennsylvania. Train 24M approaches from the west. "24M is a Chicago to Baltimore train. "21Z heads west at Oak Harbor. "21Z is a Rutherford, Pennsylvania to Chicago intermodal train. A Toledo to Bellevue train passes over the Chicago line. Train 64D is a Bakken oil train from North Dakota. You'll notice this train is running left-handed, with the oil train on the north track. Eastbound train 20E will be able to overtake and pass on the south track. "20E appears and will soon overtake the oil train. 20E runs between Chicago and Croxton, New Jersey. Moving over to the NS Newcastle District, we start in Richmond. We realize Richmond is not in Ohio, but it is so close to the border of Ohio and Indiana that we thought you wouldn't mind. Train 175 approaches the restored former Pennsylvania Railroad passenger station. 175 runs between Elkhart, Indiana and Macon, Georgia. One 144 heads west on its way between Chattanooga and Elkhart. One 196 heads east at Eaton, Ohio. 196 runs between Chattanooga and Detroit. One 124 is next, heading westbound near 7 Mile, Ohio. This train originates in Chattanooga and is destined for Decatur, Illinois. And S-251 near Somerville, Ohio. 251 is a Triple Crown train that runs between Sandusky, Ohio and Jacksonville, Florida. 124 near Somerville. .288 is an automotive train that runs between Atlanta and Detroit. Train 25A wastes no time getting to our viewpoint. This train runs between Chicago and Danville, Kentucky. The last train we'll see in the Somerville area will be NS Train 282. 282 runs between Jacksonville, Florida and Chicago. The last location you'll see on this video is Marion, Ohio. You'll see trains on the CSX Columbus line, the CSX Indianapolis line, as well as the NS Sandusky District. The action here can be intense at times. Marion is one of the most popular train watching locations in Ohio. Other popular locations include Fostoria, Deschler, and Berea. The depot at Marion has been restored and houses a museum as well as an HO scale model train layout. NS Train 218 approaches from the north. 218 runs from Chicago to Linwood, North Carolina. The steps leading up to the renovated AC Tower provide a great elevated platform for video and still photography. This point favors NS east and westbound CSX trains on the Indy line. Trains on the CSX Columbus line and eastbound CSX trains on the Indy line are blocked from view by the wooden tower structure. The steps and platforms are located on the east side of the tower. On our visit to Marion in August, we saw brand new signal bridges had been installed on both sets of diamonds. As of early November, we found that the new signal system has not been cut in as of yet. So, both the old and new signals exist at the same time. It will be just a matter of time before the old signals are taken down. CSX train Q008 heads east on the Indianapolis line. This hot intermodal train runs from St. Louis to Little Ferry, New Jersey. A westbound CSX train heads compass north on the Columbus sub between Columbus and Fostoria, Ohio. L39, the NS Marion local, heads east. Train 379 heads east. 379 is a Bellevue to Cincinnati manifest. This train will leave the Sandusky District and enter the Dayton District for its run to Cincinnati. Two 34 heads east. In years past, this train would only have been able to carry single-stack containers due to the numerous low tunnel restrictions on the Pocahontas District in West Virginia and Virginia. All that changed when NS increased the tunnel clearances in 28 tunnels in these states. This project has been named the Heartland Corridor. CSX train Q106 has just brought its train from the North Baltimore facility in Northwest Ohio to Marion. The power is doing a runaround move at the diamond. An eastbound CSX train passes our location on the Columbus sub. The power for Q106 has made the runaround move and is coupled onto the rear of the train. This train will then proceed to the Schneider Intermodal Yard just east of Marion. There it will drop off empty stack cars from the North Baltimore facility and pick up stack cars destined for St. Louis. Here we see the old and new westbound signals on the NS Sandusky District. A CSX manifest heads west on the Indy line. NS Train 304 heads east at the Diamond. 304 is a Bellevue to Columbus manifest. The tower used to reside in the northwest quadrant of the Diamond and was moved to the southwest quadrant after the tower was taken out of service. Be sure to see Green Frog's Marion, Ohio, Train Watching Capital of Ohio video to see how it used to look at this location. Also, you'll see Conrail trains in the Indy line instead of CSX that you see in this video. NS Train 235 heads west at Marion. A CSX local heads west on the Indy line. An S Train 185 appears and runs from Roanoke, Virginia to Bellevue, Ohio. An eastbound CSX train rolls by on the Columbus sub. An S Train 52Q approaches the Diamond and pulls a grain train east. A CSX Manifest train heads east. CSX Columbus subtrain heads westbound towards Fostoria. CSX train Q008 heads east on the CSX Indy line. An eastbound NS manifest train slowly approaches the diamond. Here are a few shots of the old and new signals on the CSX Indy line. The round targets are the old signals and were installed by New York Central many decades ago. The new signals are turned 90 degrees away from the tracks. Train 304 heads toward the diamonds. A rail fan from Baltimore decides to add some human interest to our video. we catch an eastbound CSX rail train on the Indy line. The last train in this program will be NS Train 218. Thanks for joining us in Volume 1 of the Railfanning Ohio series. Look for more volumes in this series, coming soon from Green Frog Productions.